Chagatinha, but Koji and DL debate, Le Misha, Brenda McDaveny and Shaw Highland Radio. Welcome everyone to the DL debate. Thanks so much for tuning in. Now live in Highland Radio, back via the podcast. Thank you, Donald Cabinet, for the news, and of course the legendary Ivan Borland for the Power Hour Plus. Joe Dex is here producing as ever. How are you, Joe? Good. Keeping all right? Good, looking fresh, kid. Fresher than me after a big weekend. Yeah, we were moving and shaking about Dramala House. We had a great night there with Milford GA Club. Some great guests down on the night as well. We're going to hear from a few of them shortly. No more than the likes of the legendary Keith Barr and Conor McManus. And listen, it was a real crew of Donegal guys there. McGuinness was there, and our goalkeeping coach James Gallagher was there, Neil McGee was there, Colin McFadden, we had Luke Barrett. It was a great night's crack all together, folks. And we're going to hear from a few of the lads now shortly. As well as that, we have John Harran, John Jazz. How are you, sir?
Very good, Brendan. Great to be back.
Felcha.
Captain the Gilga.
Oh, we have to put in a couple of Falkland, man. And we have John Gildea on the line. John, you there?
Hi, Brendan. Hi, John. How are you?
Great to hear from you, John. Good to hear from you. Folks, just beginning the show, we were on Connie McMahon there. Connie's listening in down in the hospital. As I know, the whole hospital are. They've got it on every ward. The DL debate is great tonic for anybody. But Connie's obviously a great GA man there from out Fintown way. And I would catch him around the place, and we're just wishing him a speedy recovery. Connie, John Harran's going to call in with a bunch of grapes for you now after this. Maybe if it's not after visiting time.
Good man, Connie. No, Connie's he's a great Gael. It would have been around Goody McGilligan's time and Paddy McGeehan's time. They have all them stories from back in the 50s and 60s, and Connie's a good man on Facebook there to send you a message. So get well soon, Connie.
Yeah, it's not too far from you, John.
No, and funny, Connie and my dad would be big friends. They would see each other fairly regularly. So Connie as John Harran rightly pointed out, is a legendary Gael around these parts and even all over the world, because he had a legendary career not just in Donegal but all over in Ireland. He played all over the country back in the days, and so we wish him a speedy recovery. The sooner he's out and about and going to games, the better for everybody.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. John, you're keeping well. Just we've got some great interviews not here tonight, but just a quick word from the get-go on your take on what has been an amazing change in Gaelic football, John, and these first opening rounds of the National Football League and the new rules.
Well, listen, I suppose the attitude and the perception overall over the last couple of years is something had to change, because there seemed to be a denigration of the way the football was played. It was very defensive, very difficult to get scores. People were going to games and spending more time on Facebook and Instagram than they were actually watching the game. So the GAA obviously had to act in some capacity. And I think overall it's been very successful. I think the games are better, the scores are bigger. There's a real sense of jeopardy going down the straight in a lot of games, because once upon a time, if you were 5 or 6 points up, the game was done and dusted. It meandered out to the end of the game. But now with the 2-point rule, everything's still up for grabs at the very end. And Donegal showed that in the last game against Derry, because ultimately Derry were out the gate and going home with 2 points. And then we made this late surge, sparked by Shane O'Donnell's goal. And the whole game changed on its head. So it's a much faster game in certain ways. I thought there'd be maybe more long ball, given the fact that there's 3 up all the time, but teams still seem not to want to give away possession in a 50-50 type situation. But I suppose it'll really stand the test now when we go into championship, when the ground's a bit drier, hopefully, although with Donegal and Ireland, whether you never know, and the flight of the ball's a bit different and men are coming into the peak during the season, it'll be a much faster game. So it'll be interesting to see how it works in that environment.
And John, we'll drill into the rules as time goes on. John Jazz, 2 Johns here, we'll get you sorted. John, the national referees are meeting this Wednesday. Central Council meeting Thursday to decide on the changes. There's 6 apparently proposed rule changes, which means the refs will just get them Friday before the weekend. It's a lot of stuff going on for referees, but you're hoping for a bit of a clean-up on the very obvious couple of ones,
Aye, and I think, Jim Gavin has kind of tried to address those, Brendan, in his last review after round 5 of the league, when the FRC met and, they changed them things about suppose it was highlighted in the Donegal-Galway game, where Galway could still play with 12 behind the ball even though they were down to 13 men, and that's not much advantage to the team that's attacking. And they also, I think, the rule where if a man crosses the halfway line by accident or kind of accidentally, that they weren't going to penalise that, so a few of them things. Yeah, the referees, Brendan, in fairness, have done a marvellous job, because I know David Goff was quite critical at the start that that they hadn't been told much, and the rule book hadn't really been changed, and they were told to do things kind of off the cuff. So in fairness, the referees have adapted very well, and fair play them, because they do. It's not an easy job, and especially when the rules are changing all the time, it's getting more difficult for them. But I think the referees, by and large, have handled it very well, and there hasn't been too many cases where a game has come down to a bad refereeing decision so far. So yeah, it's interesting times, Brendan, and I have to agree with everything John said earlier, that the game had got too static, too boring, and we needed something. And if you look at games all over the world, Brendan, be it basketball, soccer, cricket, whatever it is, they've all changed. All the rules had to change a few years ago. If people aren't coming to games and the games are getting boring, well then the association in charge has to change, because if people aren't going to games, there's no point having games. There's no crack playing in front of empty stadiums. So by and large, it's going to be a far better game. People are arguing, Brendan, that's a different game. This is not GA, or Gaelic football as we know it. Robbie Brennan, the Meath manager, were very critical of last day. I think he just kind of someone caught him on a.
So was McGuinness. So was a lot of managers.
Yeah, well, McGuinness not too bad. I don't think McGuinness too bad. Yeah, he goes on about there was no need to change it, but there was a need to change it. There's no doubt about it. But people saying it's a cross now between basketball and soccer and rugby and everything. I don't think so. Gaelic football has always changed. It's a different game than it was when Donegal won the All Ireland in '92. It's a different game than when Galway did the 3 in a row in the 60s, or you watch them old videos where the free kicks on the sidelines were off the ground and slowed down, a big kick, and people stayed in their positions. And the Dublin, Kevin Heffernan brought in a third midfielder, which was a big thing at the time. So games and then Jim McGuinness obviously changed it again in 2010 or 2011, 2012. And as Jim always says, he's only playing to the rules. He's only coaching to the rules. So you can't blame Jim for doing that there, and got us great success. Maybe other teams try to copy it and they couldn't do it. So long story short, Brendan, the game's always evolving, and it has to evolve again. And by and large, I'd be very happy with the new rules. Yeah,
and John, I can't wait for you to hear this interview with Keith Barr, because he's coming from a time where he doesn't. We want to keep, I suppose, the nature of the game there, as John was saying, and still have the elements in it that we love. But at the end of the day, John, I suppose there's one thing. It's going to take a while for all the rules to kind of bed in, but there's also such a deep level now of coaching that no matter what's brought in, there's going to be somebody waiting to turn it back to a possession-based game.
Yeah, in certain instances, yes. But I suppose, as John said, the game has to evolve. Everything evolves, and the basic premise of sport is entertainment. And if you don't have entertainment in it, which has happened over the last 4 or 5 years, then it's a pointless exercise for both the players and for the spectators that are actually voting with their feet and not going to games. The new game is much more entertaining, because I really like that tap and go rule where you can get fouled, you can keep going. I really like the advantage rule. They all add value and excitement to the game, because it keeps the game from being static. And that would be, maybe it wouldn't suit me if I was playing, in the sense that trying to cover goal to goal on a regular basis maybe wouldn't suit my style of game. It'd probably suit Big John there better, and he could cover much more ground. But again, now we have men that are fitter, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're better athletes. They made the field much smaller because of their fitness levels, because the dimensions of the Gaelic field hasn't changed in any way, shape or form. And they were able to make the field smaller, which encouraged that very defensive blanket type defence type arrangement that Donegal perfected and won in All Ireland with. But then that counter-attack breaking at high speed, again, which people don't give Donegal credit for, because that 2012 team exploited space very, very quickly and were very fit and were able to do that. And this has just brought it to a whole new level. There's space now, and I think it actually suits Donegal, given the level of athleticism we have in the county right now. All the team can cover ground. It's really given a new burst of life to the like of Ryan McHugh, because once upon a time when Ryan he broke into space and then he was hit by 4 players. Now when you break into space after the halfway line, you actually have space to work with. And I think overall it's been very positive from a Donegal point of view, and I'm looking forward to see how it evolves over the next couple of months into the championship season.
Yeah, definitely, John. And listen, I want to play you this interview from Keith Barr. Just a quick one. We caught up after the talk the last night. Obviously, Keith had a brilliant career. Aaron's Isle. He won a couple of Dublin championships, won in Leinster, won 5 Leinster titles in with Dublin, and NFL, a couple of All-Stars for good measure. Of course, I said they made the honour of being on the pitch in 1992, one of our big days. If they finally got across the line in 95, here's what he had to say on Saturday evening. I'm here with Keith Barr. Keith, of a golden age of Dublin football. Of course, the famous 92. You're down here at the Milford Dinner Dance. It was great to catch up this evening and get your views on your career in football at the minute.
Yeah, thanks Brendan for having us. It's lovely to be invited down. Donald Barrett and his good wife and the Milford Community and GA Club for having me, and beautiful part of the world, and it was great to meet yourself and Jim McGuinness and Conor McManus. So it's lovely to play your part in an evening like this. Yeah,
we had some panel there, Keith, you know, and looking back at you as a young fella, you know, you're that swashbuckling number 6 coming up the pitch. You weren't just a defender, you know, you could come up and score, and it was a real golden time for football, and really for Donegal people as well. In and around them early 90s, we were knocking on the door, as were the Dubs.
Yeah, look at, you know, everybody that plays Gaelic football, their wish is to play in Croke Park and win All Irelands, the whole lot. I was lucky enough, obviously, to play for my county, Dublin. I think when you're playing for the Dubs, you're in with a good shout of winning titles. Let's be fair about it. It's Dublin and Kerry are always going to be in the conversation every year. And if you happen to be on that particular team or squad at that particular year, you're going to be in with a decent chance of maybe picking up some silverware, the whole lot. But the period that I've spent with the Doves from 1988 to 2000 approximately, you know, there was, to me, it was the golden era of Gaelic football. I think so many different teams. I think in that 13-year period, I think about 8, maybe 10 different counties won All Irelands. You can go from 90 to 95. There was like Downs, all the D's, as I was speaking to you earlier. There was Down twice. There was Donegal. There was Derry. There was Dublin. Kildare were in All Ireland finals. Galway won All Ireland finals. Kerry won All Ireland finals. Meath came back, I think, won in 97 or 96. You know, it's just phenomenal to see such quality of forwards. You go from Mickey Linden to Martin McHugh, okay? You can go down to Larry Tompkins in Cork. You can go to Padraig Joyce, you know what I mean, in Galway. You can go, you know, James McCartan in Down. Just phenomenal quality footballers. And I'm leaving out so many: Bernard Flynn, Conor O'Rourke, even in my own squad, Charlie Redmonds, the Barney Rocks, the Desi Farrells, the Jason Sherlocks. You know, there were so many quality footballers. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying the football was of a high quality, but there was exciting times and people enjoyed the games, you know. And so it's interesting when you're looking at the modern game today, where it is, and we shouldn't knock it. But what I would say, what I would like to see, and I know we're talking about the football, you know, football review committee that's going on at the moment, it's difficult to say. I think we're knocking our own game too much, Brendan. We need to take a step back. People within the media who are commentating on our games need to take a step back and say, yes, football needs to improve, but it doesn't need to be drastically torn apart, ripped up and thrown out the door and let's start again. The problem is we're comparing football to hurling. And as I spoke earlier with an interview, you know, you draw a line from Galway to Waterford. Anybody below that in hurling wins an All-Ireland. Is all hurling truly an All-Ireland sport? Well, I have my doubts, but I can guarantee you now, football is truly an All-Ireland sport, because there's a team in every province in this country that can win an All-Ireland in 2025, and that's fact. So that's a starting point for us, and we shouldn't knock our own game. Last year in 2024, there was approximately 70 championship football matches. There was 24 hurling matches. So that tells a story in itself. Yep. Now, I do accept hurling is a class game. It's an entertaining game. But people in the hurling community defend our game, and they defend it so much that there's very little changes in it. But in football, all we do is drive it into the ground. Okay, we want red cards, yellow cards, pink cards, blue cards, the whole lot. But if you try to introduce that into the hurling, they'll say no, leave our sport alone. Yeah. So I think we need to, with this football review committee, I think we need to be calm, cool, and collect. I think we can slow it down, take the speed out of this, and people give time for people to reflect. Our game isn't as bad as people are making it out to be, but there's a media agenda out there. There's a media agenda out there, and pundits making our game absolutely the way they make a comment, they're destroying it. I believe they are. So I do accept that there has to be improvements. Let's not be fools about this. But I don't think it's as bad as everybody's making it out to be.
Yeah. And Charlie, you know what? You brought so much to the game. You brought so much to tonight. Between the 91 saga, the 4 games we talked about it. Of course, 92, but you had your big moment in 95.
Yeah.
It was a brilliant time. Charlie, you brought so much to the evening. It was great to catch up.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having us. I'm very fond of Donegal and the people of Donegal.
And Kinniger as well, sponsor.
Yeah. And look,
we'll give them a mention.
We give them a mention, and you know, I have great friends in Donegal's over many years, and they're fine people up here, and I'm delighted to be up here. And thanks for having me.
Top man, appreciate it.
God bless.
Cheers. Yes, that was Keith Barr there. Must have been a few Kinnigers. Did I pull Charlie out there at some stage?
I think I was wondering whether it was Charlie Redmond or Keith Barr halfway through. I didn't know who you were talking to.
I think he must have put it in my head, yeah, at that stage. It was later on in the evening after the show, as you imagine, John, we were letting hair down a small bit. Did you play against Keith Barr?
I did, and a rock of a man he was. He was a very old school centre half back that to say that he liked to get up close and personal was probably an understatement. I don't know, in the current environment with a lot of cameras around the place where he would be as up close and personal, but that was the way football was back in the day. And an amazing player, an amazing ambassador for Dublin. And it's interesting listening to him because there's a huge amount of nostalgia flooding back to me in what he's saying, because before I managed to make a Donegal team, in your late teens, you're looking at the Meath saga, you're looking at the Dubs, you're looking at all these great players, and you only see them on TV. And you only see them on TV during championship time because there was no coverage of the National League. So these kind of mystical creatures that were county footballers back in the day showed up 3 or 4 times a year on your TV screen. And you had these epic games. And as Keith pointed out, there mightn't have been a wild high standard of football, but amazingly entertainment and amazingly exciting. And I think what has happened is that the GAA, or Gaelic in particular, has got a huge amount of exposure over the last 10 years in particular. And I think because of that, it comes under more scrutiny. And as we all know, and all 3 of us have played in terrible games, and maybe more terrible games than good games over the years, but they were done behind closed doors in a league game in Roscommon or a league game in Leitrim or wherever it might be, with a couple of hundred people. And then come championship time, people would see championship football. And that was their expectation of the way football was played all along. And what has happened is, with the success of Gaelic football and the amount of exposure it's got, people started to realise on a day-to-day basis Gaelic football was terrible in lots of ways. And I think that's why there's a big move towards changing the rules to make it more exciting, because a lot of games over the last 5 to 7 years have been particularly poor and have no entertainment value. And I think that's why there's been a move away. But I do think from Keith's perspective, they were only seen 4 or 5 times a year, and it was very easy. They were big events. Like, I'm older than you and I'm older than John. Back in the good old days when there was only RTE, there was only 4 or 5 events throughout the entire year you could see on TV live. The All-Ireland Final, hurling and football, the Rose of Tralee, and the RDS Horse Show. So that's what gave them an extra edge, and we've lost that now because there's so much football, which I don't think is necessarily good, because I think there's too much Gaelic football right now, and thankfully they're going to reduce the number of games next year as well, both from a spectator cost perspective, but also just from the fact that you can have too much of a good thing, and I think that's what's happened to us as well.
Interesting points, John. I mean, it's Keith, as John was saying, what a player he was. I'll not tell you what he said about Martin McHugh when I was rubbing him about that, but I was saying he wouldn't have looked out of place in Muscle Beach where we tank top on him back in the day. You know, he says he was a golden hair. He had the golden hair. He had the looks, and as John was saying there, you know, is it that thing where there's so much exposure in football now that we're bound to get into that rut? And the thing about, I think they're about, Keith, like hurling. I don't really think, why do we ever need to put the two together?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. The way hurling's played, John, there's only one way to play it, and that's 100 mile an hour. You never got a stage where a boy has the sliotar and he's standing there tapping it at the end of his hurl. You got to give it. So I don't really put, you know, I'd never be in one side or the other. You know?
But even
football's football.
But even on hurling, Ben, you listen to the hurling's. Well, I won't say hurling snobs or hurling aficionados. Like, you know, they will say that the hurling game has changed a lot.
Yes,
too, with a short puck out. Like, the
yeah.
keepers are taking short puck outs to the corner back, and it's working it up. Limerick used this running game, or Cork are very good at it with the, you know, short hand pass and running up through the middle. So hurling has changed too, and you know, a lot of hurling people say they don't like it, but they're playing within the rules. So what can you do? Coming back to Keith Barr, yeah, brilliant player and a hero of that Dublin team and that, you know, that era. He was the main man kind of for Dublin. Him and Charlie Redmond maybe. And he was a free taker, Brendan. He had this massive kick on him from centre half back. He used to take frees from around the halfway line, and sometimes they'll go over, you know. But that was when you know, sometimes even the frees were off the ground. But what he did say, Brendan, was that, you know, the standard mightn't have been great, but you know, it was competitive, and there was collisions and there was action, and I think that's what, you know, Jim Gavin's trying to bring back into it.
There's jeopardy on the ball.
There's jeopardy on the ball.
As John was saying, and now with possession-based games. Yeah. That can't be there because coaches, you know, have got too smart with the game, and you can't just for the best ball in the world, you're never going to completely change that. Now we are altering it a bit, to kind of sort that out. Like,
people are saying now that, you know, they're giving out now, but the kick out's going long. Every kick out now has to go long. It doesn't have to go long, but most keepers are kicking it long now out the middle, and people now are saying it's turned into a scrum. Like, Jesus, when did this happen? Like, you know, we want to go back to the days of Anthony Malloy and Brian Murray when it was kicked out the middle and the big man went up and caught it. Like, and if it broke, Martin McHugh or someone, or Joyce McMullen came on it, and away we went, you know, be it on the other team or for Donegal. And like, that's kind of what people are harping back to. We're going to get that again. You know, Brendan, last year, the Ulster final, Donegal and Armagh Clonus, right? The first half, I think the score at half time was 11-10 to Armagh Donegal, Donegal. And some of the scoring was unbelievable. You know, but there was no crack in the game, Brendan. It was boring. I don't give a damn.
It was lit up by moments
of good shooting, but you know, there was no crack in it. The best game last year from Donegal point of view, from my point of view, was the game against Derry and Celtic Park, where Derry pushed up on the kickouts, and you know, we broke it and ran in for the goals, and you know, and the crowd was involved, and there was a bit of Jesus, Donegal, they're going down, and what are Derry? You know, there was a bit of crack in it, like, you know. So I think that's what we want. We want a bit of crack. We want a bit of, you know, turnovers, you know, high catching, breaking fast from midfield, and not the slow build up which we were getting for too long.
Yeah. And John, do you agree that we're getting there? And I suppose what Keith is saying, like, stop hammering the game, you know. I just think at this point, though, John, between the changes, say, in championship structure and now all the rules and that, whatever's decided now in terms of the small changes to the rules to make everything right, we've got to stick with that and just go with it, and for good or for bad, because I think by the alterations and by too much change, I think it's maybe that's what's getting to a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, at this stage of changes, we bit the bullet. The changes have been made. You know, it's okay to tweak one or two of them because there's been anomalies showing up in them, and you know, you have to evolve and you have to fix those. But overall, the rules have been a big plus for the game. The other thing is, you know, back in the good old days, when we started to play, you know, there was no science behind football back then. It was very much, you know, if you had a group of individual talented players, you managed to win a game. And it was very hard to replicate it week on week because you didn't know how you won the game the week before because it was all ad hoc. And what has happened is with the advent of really, really high-end clinical type managers, you know, Mickey Hart started it, and then we moved on to the McGuinness era. And now, you know, I listened to Jim during the week and he was doing something out in the Mount Errigal, and they're talking about even managing the room temperature for players for when they go to sleep. Now, when we were playing, Brendan, it was hard to get people into bed to go to sleep, let alone the room temperature. But, you know, that's where the game has gone, and therefore the game itself structurally is analysed to within an inch of its life, and that's what has caused it to become so pedestrian and so ultimately boring from a spectator point of view. So the GAA had to act. I think they pulled together a great panel. I have the utmost respect for Jim Galvin and guys like that, and obviously our own Michael Murphy was involved to orchestrate the rules to suit him better than anybody else, which was great. But I think overall, if you looked at the league over the last number of weeks, I would have to suggest that it would be very, very difficult for anybody to look at that and say the game is poorer than it was this time last year. I think there's a marked improvement, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it now as it rolls out into the championship.
Perfect. John, listen, we'll be back after the break. We're going to hear from Conor McManus and more from the two Johns.
The DL Debate with Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love till 9 p.m. daily in Sarah's Kitchen. And there's free admission entertainment every weekend.
Highland Radio's 35th birthday charity day. Hughie's Corner is a child, adolescent and adult counselling service based in Carndonna.
Due to separation, it was necessary for my child to attend counselling, and if it wasn't for the service that Hughie's Corner provides, my child wouldn't have received the early intervention that was needed to support her during this part of her life.
For just €10, you can support Hughie's Corner and other incredible causes while securing your chance to win in our big cash giveaway this Friday. Donate today and make a real difference. Visit highlandradio.com now.
The Power of Choice Spring Sales event is happening now at Kelly's Toyota, Letterkenny and Mount Charles. Test drive our wide range of hybrids, plug-in hybrids and the fully electric BZ4X and see why Toyota is Ireland's best-selling car brand again this year. There's flexible payment options and incredible offers, including our biggest Power Up booster of up to €3,000 available until the 15th of March. At Kelly's Toyota, Letterkenny and Mount Charles. Toyota, built for a better world. Terms and conditions apply. Best-selling claim based on latest published monthly figures.
The DL Debate with Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love till 9 p.m. daily in Sarah's Kitchen. And there's free admission entertainment every weekend.
Yes, folks, welcome back to the DL Debate. As I say, on Saturday evening there, caught up with Conor McManus. What a career, 17 years with Monaghan, you know, a couple of Ulster titles, he's 7 club titles as well. He's only one behind you, John Boy. He also picked up 3 All-Stars and gave us some unbelievable performances, played for his country quite a few times as well. Here's a few words from the man himself, Conor McManus. We're here with Conor McManus. Conor, I had to pull you away from Neil McGee there, of all people. You're down visiting us here in Donegal to Mulford dinner dance. You having a good time?
Yeah, good time. It's never an easy job getting away from Neil McGee, whether it's on the field or off the field.
Conor, listen, after an unbelievable career club and county, 17 years with Monaghan, you had to call time. A tough decision to make?
Yeah, it is a tough decision to make. Yeah, like it's something that you've spent so much time at your whole, I suppose, your adult life. I went in through the doors as a Monaghan player at 18 years of age and finished up at 37. You know, so it's a huge chunk of your life. It's definitely going to be something that you suppose you'll have to adjust to. But listen, time moves on. I suppose I'm ready for that next stage in life. So yeah, listen, I enjoyed every minute of it. If I could go back and do it all again, 100% you'd do it in a heartbeat. Yeah,
Conor, you're an absolute phenomenal footballer. Obviously, top Ulsterman in the history of our GA scoring records. Are you looking on a wee bit envious now because so many people said to me Conor McManus was built for the 2-point game?
yeah. The thing has changed big time. It was so defensively orientated, the game this last 15-20 years, probably the most defensive era in Gaelic football. And the one year you step away, it becomes the most attacking version of Gaelic football we've probably ever seen. It's very much centred on forwards and it favours attacking play. And that's to be seen with the scores that teams and players are racking up at the minute. But listen, that's it. It was something I did give thought to. But at the end of the day, I suppose what makes the decision a wee bit easier is knowing that I'm probably not physically fit to do it, and that's probably makes it a wee bit easier, you know, in a way. Yeah.
And listen, of course, Monaghan down to Division 2, maybe a good thing, new management, yourself away, but they're still building something, Conor. Should Donegal get over there? There's a potential collision course coming with the Fernie men.
Yeah, and like over the years, Monaghan have had a decent record against Donegal, but I'd say this is probably a different Donegal team, you know, coming off the back of last year that say they probably have a wee bit of grit between their teeth. But things are going well for Monaghan. It was probably a good time, if there is a good time to be in Division 2, it was probably this year, just with new rules, new management, you know, blood and a lot of young players, so it suited Monaghan to be in Division 2 this year. But I think it's time they got out of it. At the same time, big game coming against Meath on Sunday week, and if they win that, they'll be back up the division. And I think that's the one thing we've seen over the years. Any of the good teams that have gone down, they've popped straight back up. Donegal went down, straight back up. Armagh went down, back up. Tyrone went down, Mayo went down, Dublin went down. All came straight back up. Monaghan have been there the past 10 years, went down, popped straight back up, and I think that's a sign of a good team, because it does look from the games that I've been at that Monaghan are too strong for Division 2. But again, they'll have it all to do in Navan in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and last question, Conor, obviously you conducted yourself so well on off the pitch. You're such a talent. There's so much respect and love for you out there in the GA world. What's next for Conor McManus? Is there going to be coaching? Are you going to pass on the knowledge to the next generation?
Listen, I enjoy it. I'm involved with Clontibbert Minors at the minute. So yeah, I'll throw my hat in that. I'll try and play club football with the club at home in Clontibbert, and we'll see what comes after that. But I do enjoy working with players and trying to, I suppose, help them and develop them as best you can. So yeah, look at who knows where that'll take me. But for the minute it's Clontibbert Minors.
Yes, John Harran, where would you put him then? He's fourth in this all-time scoring before obviously the games. We're going to talk before and after now because of the scoring difference. But Cillian O'Connor, Colm Cougar, Dean Rock, he's next. But the very fact that he played for Monaghan, no harm, in Ulster, does that make him potentially the best finisher, not only of his generation, but one of the best ever?
Well, I suppose, Brendan, you have to put him up there. I thought maybe Oisin McConville might have been ahead of him, but there you are. If he's ahead of Oisin in Ulster, he is. Even Paddy Bradley, the famous Paddy.
I think that was an Ulster record that Oisin
had. All over McManus. No, he was a brilliant player. Jesus, Brendan, he was class. And, the more than all them players, the way he held himself, and there's never any out dirt with him, or he could handle himself surely, but he, a gentleman on the pitch and off the pitch. But to be fourth in the all-time scoring list, like you were a forward, you played plenty, but to be.
I don't know where I'm at. If in case you wondered, I was joking about scrolling down the phone.
I know why, but he that long career, to go on for so long, 17, 18, 19 years at the top, is phenomenal and a great player. As you said, in the interview, just so ironic that he has to step out the 1 year that the rules are changing. And I suppose from our point of view, we see Michael Murphy was fit to come back and try it for a year, and hopefully we'll see the rewards of that. But poor Conor, the injuries just caught up with him, and time caught up with him, and he had to step away. But Brendan, one of the best ever. Yeah,
you put him up there, John?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, he was probably the best scorer in the country, out and out scorer. He could kick from either flank. Was a real showboat player in the best sense, in the sense that if he got half a yard at all, he could swing his leg at it, and invariably 9 times out of 10, it was going over the bar. He was a joy to watch, and again, and I know you said it kind of jokingly at the beginning, but given the fact that he played with Monaghan, who had a modicum of success, but you can imagine putting Conor McManus into the great Dublin team or the great Kerry team, and I would suggest that his numbers would be even much, much higher again. So when you take that into consideration, he's one of the greats. Good guy, conducted himself well, but just a joy to watch. Any day you went to see him, and I know him and Neil McGee, and he mentioned Neil McGee had an awful lot of battles over the years, but even the great Neil McGee in his prime struggled with Conor McManus. And I would say, if you asked Neil who gave him the most problems, I guarantee you Conor McManus would be close to the top of that list.
Yeah, and Brendan, just coming back in there, I suppose what John chatted about earlier was all the analysis, the modern day analysis, and I seen a few stats when Conor McManus retired. I think maybe in the Irish News or something. I think his clutch, what they call it, he was a real clutch player. When it counted, he was able to score in the last 10 minutes of big games when Monaghan needed him. Not when the game's over, not at the start, but when they needed him, he was the man to step up. And you can't beat a clutch player like that, and he was the best at that.
But I know some see for his free taking, he was so calm. He may as well have been in the training pitch, which is the ultimate way to kick a ball, because if you tense up in any way, it's going to affect your performance. And then I thought his strike in general play, whenever his foot connected with the ball, it's times he to go a bit still from. He always got a lovely connection on the ball, and I think that's one of the things that really separated him. But what a player, and he's going to try it one more season with the club. I think he's going to need a wee bit of a surgery then, so we wish him all the best. Now Conor, he's getting married this year as well. Lads, we're talking about the rules then. We're looking at these changes, John. Looks like there's an option for, if the keeper is going to come up the pitch, that another player has to come back in. What do you, is that one of the biggest issues in terms of the games now, is the keeper coming out? And for me, obviously, and I've said it before about Jim Gavin and his ideas of the game, he wants us to play the game everywhere. So he's saying you got to engage the other team in their half because they can't give it back to the keeper. So it's on you, and we've seen it done, obviously, even in the last round of games, the way Mayo did it to Armagh. Or did to Kerry, sorry, and it was done. Derry did it to Kerry very well a few times, and it was fascinating to see where everybody took their man, kept pushing them back, and you couldn't go back to keeper. So what the FRC are saying is, we're giving you the chance to do it, and if you don't do it, we're going to let the keeper come out. Now, there's been a lot of people kicking back against that, but where do you stand on it?
Yeah, well, I suppose, Brendan, I listen to you and Parkinson a good bit on the podcast. I'm a subscriber to the Smaller Fish podcast, and it's funny, like, no more than the whole social media, I think whatever you listen to, you're kind of swayed down that way. But without Parkinson would be very much against the goalkeeper coming up, and you can see his points. And when you listen,
Niall Morgan got a few touches.
Niall, he was very hard on Morgan, but you can see his point, and you can also see the point of Jim Gavin. So there was no doubt about it that Jim Gavin was, and the FRC's head, they were saying, go and push the team high up the pitch, go and try and win the ball back on their half. If you don't, we're gonna penalise you for letting them come over the halfway line uncontested, and they're going to have an extra man. They can bring the goalkeeper up if they want. Now, people are saying it's only Niall Morgan that can do it, or Ethan Rafferty, but when you listen to it and you go down through the leagues, there's a lot of very good goalkeepers. A lot of teams have put outfield players in nets for that reason. So, teams were identifying it as being a big help, and then I suppose we haven't seen it yet, Ben, but the possibility was that they could choke a game later on with the 12 men up in the opposition half, just holding the ball, being good enough at it, and that was going to choke the game. So I think it's a good enough reason to pull it. I'm happy enough to see it pulled, and that it'd be great if we see more of that Mayo pushing on a team up the field, going after them in their own half and their own full back line, and the team can't get out. It was great, that clip on Mayo. Like, it was brilliant. That's what we want to see. Like, it's super.
And John Gildea, John, where do you stand on it, John? Because obviously the black card and the red card thing, as we've seen, that has to be sorted. Then discretion of the 3v3, where somebody accidentally steps over the line and then potentially could be brought back for a 2-pointer. It's very obvious that they all are going to be cleaned up. I think the big one in here is whether or not they stop the keeper coming out the pitch, and then whether the kick out, if there is an option, John, where there is a potential short. I think that's a couple of maybe ones that'll have a big difference on our game, which I think are still questionable.
They are, yeah. Like, again, if you have the quality keeper that is very comfortable out the field, you're going to be on one side of the fence. If you have an Ethan Rafferty or Morgan or somebody of that caliber, you're going to go, yeah, definitely, that's where we want to be. The other side of the equation is, like, we have Sean Patton, who's an exceptional goalkeeper, and his weapon is the ability to, put it on a postage stamp 60 or 70 yards away. But he's not overly comfortable coming out the field, and he doesn't offer any attacking threat. So, we're being penalised for that to a certain extent. So I do think it has to be looked at. I know Morgan was crying about it a little bit, and somebody pointed out if he thought he was good enough to play outfield, then maybe he should try for an outfield position. Goalkeepers are goalkeepers. So, I think the goalkeeper being pushed on into an offensive position and the defending team being at a disadvantage is probably a step too far. I don't think it was tried, it was tested. It's been very effective for some teams, but most other teams it hasn't worked for them at all. So I don't think that's an issue. I think they need to tidy up things about, I know they're starting out a bit of clock on the kickouts and frees and all that type of stuff. And I think that's open to interpretation, because we looked at some of the games. I think it was a Dublin Kerry game where, the goalkeeper only took 15 and 16. Maybe it was Armagh, actually.
14, yeah.
Yeah, 13, 14, 15 seconds, and he was penalised. The other thing is, and again, I noticed this in one of the games where the player fouled somebody, the ball broke, and he picked the ball up and he put it down because he didn't actually foul anybody per se, or he couldn't hand it back to anybody, and the ball was moved forward 50 yards into a scoring position. I think sometimes the penalty is very severe in that kind of instance. I think if you don't throw the ball away, if you put the ball on the ground where you are, I don't think any more can be asked of you. So little things like that probably need to be tidied up. But overall, I think, as I said earlier, we're moving in the right direction. Yeah,
listen, John, totally agree. The wee things like the ball back, and to me, I think they're so obvious. I think they're going to do them, as you said, definitely for a ref to try and be counting 20 seconds ahead, particularly in the heat of a big game. That's nearly impossible. And my God, we're putting enough on them as it is.
Yeah, no, exactly. Very hard then wee things, and you don't want a game decided by something silly like that there, especially now that thing like with the goalkeeper taking too long. It's like it's a free in. It's not even a hot ball in the 21. It's a free in to the other team, so it's just giving away a point. The one we think Brendan and I have a slight issue with, and I don't know, I seem to be very much on my own about this, is the 2-pointer, right? Because I think now that something that's crept into the game is, and it's a bit artificial to the way we should play Gaelic football, is that if you're attacking up the field fast, you should try and score, be that a point or a goal. Okay, I think now there's a bit of hesitancy on teams. They're stopping. They're thinking, is there a 2-point on here? Can we slow it down? Get the 2-point kicker coming out on the arc. We think, I'm not sure of that there. But I can see the value of the 2-point, and as John said earlier, it makes games exciting going down the stretch. But I think there's something artificial about
John,
it.
The 2-pointer has actually made teams deeper defensive.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to be just inside the 45. Now we're lined up on that line.
Yeah.
And I think if any teams have dropped even deeper with it, and listen, be honest, I don't think we need it now. Everybody seems to love it because it is like a big wow moment. But I think just particularly with the goal being 3 points, I mean, there's another thing has to be sorted as we're coming through it. I mean, the goal can't be 3 points if we're sticking with 2 pointers. That needs to at least
I
go
agree with
forward.
that. I think you have to really, ideally, if you're going to allow people to kick 2-pointers, unopposed from 35 metres, let's be honest, for a quality forward isn't a big ask. Then I do think we have to look at the goal situation and encourage people to take that extra jeopardy to see if we can get a 4-pointer or a 5, whatever the appropriate number. But I do think with the 1 and the 2-point, I think the 3-point reward for a goal right now isn't adequate enough to encourage people to go for it. Yeah. The other thing and I think this is something maybe it's a whole other debate at some point. We're very much focused on county football here, and you have multiple TV cameras, multiple officials, referees from neutral corners and everything else. Ultimately, this only works, and the rules only work if it can work from an under-16 match or an under-12 match right up to senior level, inter-county level, and everywhere in between, junior, intermediate, whatever. And I'll be very interested to see how our own local leagues play out when you have a referee who lands in Glenties on his own, and St Eunan or whoever's coming to Glenties or
hostile crowd always.
Yeah, well, I didn't get to St Eunan's. I was talking about Glenties there, so it'll be very interesting to see how it's. You can imagine the amount of pressure that's on the county referees who are fitter. They're going to conferences on a regular basis to update themselves on the rules. They have the support of 4 umpires and 2 linesmen and maybe somebody else around them to give them guidance. How is this all going to work in a wet day in Maragallon or in Towney or somewhere like that where a referee's on his own? I think that's where problems are going to come in. And ultimately, I don't want to see a situation where we have a 2-tier game where games are totally different at club level versus county level because the rules can't be implemented at club level to the satisfactory nature.
But John, I take your point and but what do you think? To me, the biggest issue for a referee is I think the 3-and-3 is going to police itself. I think people are going to shout from the sideline and people are going to stop and they're going to go back.
I think the rest of them said themselves they're going to work with, which I thought they would have done anyway. But then I heard the rule was it's cut and thrust. But I think that's changing. Yeah.
I think the 2-pointer, are you inside or outside the arc? Is your foot on the arc or not? Is going to be the most debatable decision in a game, possibly for a club game, as you say, a big game. I can't see anything else, John. I'm not.
I think that the refs need someone with them on the line as a not forgetting about being a linesman or umpire, but on the line like a fourth official. Well, that it can back him up if he's not sure that he's got another pair of eyes, and we need to pay for that, man.
Yeah, Mayo County Board are bringing in a fourth official, not a linesman, not a linesman, not an umpire, but someone to go with the ref, be it another ref, and to do something like that, Brendan, just to. Yeah, so they're bringing it in for their league, so they're going to see how it goes. Do they have the manpower? But they're going to try it anyway.
Yeah. Listen, a couple of wee words from Jim McGuinness here as well, folks. I just want to ask you a few questions off the back of that.
You know, they were very tired today. That was obvious. They were very tired. You know, we weren't ourselves today for, you know, a large part of it. It is our 5th week on the bounce, I suppose. You're playing a good side that know how to use the ball and keep the ball. But there was a lot of times now we didn't lay a hand on them defensively. A lot of times, even for Conor Glass's goal, we couldn't even get back. So I think they've definitely deserved a few days off now. We'll give them a wee bit of a circuit breaker for a couple of days now, physical and mental, and hopefully we can freshen them up and go from there. But the positive would be the fact that, you know, even though we were 8 points down, you know, you still, based on last year and all the work that they've done, you still feel that you're never really gone. And I think that is one of the big positives we'll take for the game.
Yeah, and I suppose another positive is you got time into the legs of some players, Keelan McColgan or McFadden Fair in the second half. And again, Michael Murphy came on to the second half, and I think he was involved in nearly everything in that closing period, so he was.
No, definitely, and Oran Doherty as well, and Owen McHugh. I think all of them players added to us, and it's obviously they were fresh, and so they were coming in and they gave us a wee bit of energy that was required, that was lacking in many respects. So that was all really positive. You know, Oran, Michael, Owen McHugh picked up 2 or 3 very important breaks. Kieran Moore then, when he was moved from the cornerback position out the field, really used his athleticism in the last 15 or 20 minutes as well, to kind of go at Derry, and that was an important sort of a couple of interventions for him. So yeah, listen, we know that we have an awful lot to think about in relation to Derry. We have an awful lot to work on going away today, but the big positive would be the last quarter, that they kept on going, they kept on believing, and were able to sort of get hands on the ball around the middle of the park, which is so important. We've seen it with Dublin and Kerry a couple of weeks ago. We've seen it last night on the TV. You know, Armagh absolutely dominated, and then the second half Dublin were dominating on the kick out for a period. So I suppose in terms of the rules, you would like to think that the thing would have been settling at this stage at round 5, but it doesn't feel like that. And even
that was going to be one of my questions, because you said in the pre-season part that by round 5 everybody would have a good idea of the actual playing field when it comes to the rules. But it's not the case. No, it's not the case, because things are being introduced, you know, midstream. You know, the 20-second rule on the kickouts over the weekend was, you know, I don't understand what we're trying to do here. Is that we're trying to create a game where everything, there's like, I don't understand where a player gets a breather. Yeah. You know, there is no opportunities. You know, before, when the ball went over the bar or wide, you would be jogging out to your position and you'd be able to get a breather, and you'd be right, okay, you need to go again, and, you know, process for a couple of seconds. They're playing under serious fatigue at the moment, and maybe, you know, today those couple of subs that we were able to bring in versus Derry, that had put it so much into the game, made the difference. But I think in terms of the player welfare aspect of it, it's very hard at the moment, and very challenging for the lads.
Yeah, Jim McGuinness there chatting to Oisín on the back of the Derry game and giving the lads a reset, a badly needed one. He mentioned, John, you knew the two Johns, John Gildea, you mentioned about the midfield battle and the big men. Listen, it's a big concern now, you know, Langan and McGee, you know, we're relying on Murphy to come in. We were thinking he might have been a target man inside, but it looks like, as we talked before, you're going to need his power around the middle, which he was brilliant at in that Derry game. But even the likes of McBurty as well. You know, we've got a few injuries, John. That's, you know, time is short. Maybe we're lucky now we have this last couple of games, which we don't have to obviously risk anybody. We're safe. But it's certainly a concern that some of our main men, we need to get back in there. Yeah, but I think it's the same throughout the country. As Jim pointed out, there's a huge overload on players right now. There's, you know, the intensity level has gone up. The amount of, or the volume of work they're doing in games, I think, has gone up quite significantly. And again, as Jim pointed out, with the new 20-second rule, there's no breathers, there's no time to reset. And that all, you know, you build that in on a week-on-week basis, and Donegal went 5 weeks in a row. And then trying to incorporate a training schedule in the middle of that to prepare for championship. And it's a huge amount of workload on players, which, you know, kind of in a way, you would like to think the GPA would be more involved in this, because it goes against the whole ethos of player welfare to a certain extent. Like, you can't flog them to death to the point where, you know, they run hard for 40 minutes and then they're dragged off the field, and you put on the, you know, it's a bit like the All Blacks and the power forward sevens that come on. So you don't want the game going that way as well. There has to be a level of balance as regards making sure players are looked after, they're given time to produce their best. And as you said, the only good thing from our point of view is I don't think Jim is overly eager in being in league final the week before we play Derry anyway. So that gives us, you know, 3 weeks
to, rest major players, allow them to do their own conditioning work, allow them to recover from any niggles they have, which should mean that we should go into the Derry game with a clean bill of health, which would be great. And obviously very important. But I think the level of intensity, the amount of games and the amount of training and the amount of workload right now has to lead to injuries. And I suppose it's only at the end of this year that we'll fully understand to what level that is.
Yeah, John, here's one now for you that, like Donegal, the second year with Jim McGuinness, right? There's no doubt about it, but that the expectation and from the general public and the national media, like Donegal are one of the favourites for the All-Ireland, okay? So does an Ulster title matter to Donegal this year? I would argue that it doesn't, that it's all going to come down to an All-Ireland. If Donegal don't win an All-Ireland, it's hard to say, but it could be a failure. There's no doubt about it. That's what Jim McGuinness wants. So, like this, Jim has always put massive credence on the Ulster title and the Ulster Championship, which is great, and it's great for the Ulster Championship and great for us because we haven't won that many, 10 or whatever in our history. And, going out, getting beat by Derry, I know it sounds awful, and Ballybofey in the first round of the Championship wouldn't be the end of the world. Yeah, funny, John, just before you get answering that, Jim, actually, we talked about that Saturday night. He was adamant that, no, Ulster, that's it. And he always has. He said you can't win All-Ireland unless you won Ulster, would have been his. Well, it worked for Armagh last year, but yeah, he was very adamant that that's the goal and that's it.
But you see, listen, and Jim is obviously a huge advocate for Ulster, and that's not going to change. Donegal are going to go to win the Ulster title. There's no doubt about that. What happens after that event is, and then it's we need to be careful as well about going, if we don't win All-Ireland, it's seen as a failure, because it's only 2 years ago where we couldn't get out of our own way and we couldn't win a game. So, Donegal people in general, we're very easy to jump on the bandwagon and have huge expectations, yet forget the very near past where we were in complete turmoil and the wheels were falling off the wagons at all level. So there has to be a balance there.
We were in Ulster final the year before that, John. Listen, I know there was a one bad year there, but it wasn't like, I suppose, Jim's first tenure. There was the guts of a well-conditioned team in there. It just went into that bad year. John, I've got the family holiday booked for the Tuesday before the All-Ireland final, and I was panicking there a couple of weeks ago, and the wife was looking at me saying, "What's wrong with your head?" But I was panicking because I said, "Jesus, are we going to be away from Donegal in the All-Ireland final?"
If you were on the squad right now, you'd be cut instantly because you're not showing the required level of belief that we're all going to be in the All-Ireland final. So I'm disappointed, to say the least. It wouldn't happen, up our way. But again, listen, Donegal are going to be thereabouts. If you look at, I think this is the most open All-Ireland, just like last year. Yeah. If you look at, Dublin, I don't know about them. I think, they're rebuilding. They lost a lot of big guns. Galway obviously started as favourites. They've taken, they're shooting the lights out. But Joyce is under huge pressure. So if he doesn't deliver an All-Ireland, that's definitely a failure for them. Yeah. Kerry. And then you look at, so you have Kerry and Galway, I feel, would be the two.
I'll call now Galway for me for the All-Ireland.
Galway for you, John.
That's because you went to school. And then you have Armagh, and then you have Tyrone, and people shouldn't write off Tyrone because I think they're going to.
Don't write off the Tyrone man. You heard it here first, John. Brilliant as ever. We could keep us going all night. John Harran and John Gildea, brilliant. Thanks to my guests as well. Joe Dex for producing. Great show this evening. Shinny and Nish Gormila, my hugget. We're taking a week off next week. We've got the bank holiday.